There's this really fascinating concept in map making called paper towns.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Most of the time, it's just a copyright trap. A cartographer will, stick a fake town or a fake street on a map.
Just to catch people who are copying their work.
Exactly. If that fake town suddenly shows up on a competitor's map, boom, you know they stole it.
It's a clever little trick.
It is, but sometimes a map lies for a totally different reason. Sometimes it lies to make a promise that the city, well, has absolutely no intention of keeping.
It's like the bureaucratic version of a mirage, you know?
Yeah.
You look at the map, you see all this potential, this green space. Then you actually go to the site, and what you see is the grim reality.
The grim reality, and that is exactly where we have to start today. If you looked at a map of Brooklyn, New York in the late 1970s, specifically right there on the edge of Jamaica Bay, you would have seen this lovely, hopeful green patch labeled Spring Creek Park. Proposed.
Proposed. That's the key word.
It sounds idyllic, right? I mean, you picture families, maybe a baseball diamond, guys selling hot dogs, kids running around on the grass.
But if you actually drove your car out there in, say, 1975, you were not finding a baseball diamond.
No, not even close.
You were finding a scar. A literal scar on the landscape. You were finding the Fountain Avenue Automobile Pound and the Fountain Avenue Dump.
I really want to just dwell on this location for a minute, because it isn't just the setting for our deep dive today. It is practically the antagonist of the story.
It really is. I mean, we're talking about a place that defines that whole era of urban decay.
So what did it actually look like?
It was desolate. Just a huge, desolate stretch of land. Think about acres and acres of landfill that had been, well, smoldering for decades.
Smoldering, you mean actually on fire?
Yeah, underground fires. The ground itself was literally unstable because of all the rotting trash underneath. And then sitting right on top of that geological instability, you have the automobile pound.
A graveyard for machines.
That's the perfect way to put it. Thousands of them. Rusted out, abandoned cars just stacked on top of each other, waiting to be crushed into cubes.
It feels like it's a hiding place for everything the city just didn't want to look at. I mean, in the 70s, New York was just hemorrhaging money.
Oh, the budget crisis was in full swing.
Services were cut, things were crumbling everywhere. So these places like Fountain Avenue, they became these blind spots.
Yeah, that's a good term for it.
They were technically part of the city, right?
Yeah.
Technically patrolled by the NYPD, but in reality, they were wildlands.
And that brings us right to the source material we're diving into today. We are analyzing a case file that, and this is the thing, if you take the evidence at face value, it changes everything we think we know about urban evolution.
That's a big claim.
It is. We're talking about the disappearance and ultimately the death of two NYPD officers, Hugo DeFalco and Dennis Houlihan.
Two men who walked into one of these so-called blind spots, and, well, they just never walked out. And what's so crucial here, and this is what we're going to spend a lot of time unpacking, is that this wasn't a shootout. It wasn't a drug bust gone wrong.
It wasn't a mob hit, nothing you'd expect.
It was an event that seems to defy all forensic logic.
It does. So the mission for this deep dive is to really unpack three specific layers.
Okay.
First, there's the forensic anomaly itself. How do two armed, experienced professionals die without even pulling a trigger? Second, you have the investigation by these two detectives, Wilson and Neff, which exposes this terrifying biological possibility.
And third?
And third, the bureaucratic cover-up that tried to erase the whole thing.
Because the city just didn't want to admit that maybe, just maybe, humans weren't at the top of the food chain in Brooklyn anymore.
It is a deeply disturbing thought, but when you look at the evidence, that's where it points.
Okay, so let's get right into the incident itself. I want to set the scene for you. It's a rainy, just miserable autumn afternoon. You know, the kind of gray day where the damp just soaks right into your bones?
It's the kind of weather that makes you question all your life choices. And Officers DeFalco and Houlihan are out there, part of the auto squad.
Which sounds cool. It sounds like they're chasing stolen Ferraris down the highway.
Yeah, but the reality is their job that day was just bureaucracy in motion. They were walking through the mud at the Fountain Avenue pound, looking for cars that had been completely stripped.
They were just marking them for the crusher, is that it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
A can of spray paint and a Polaroid camera. That's it. It's tedious, boring work. They walk up to, you know, a rusted shell of an old Buick, paint a big white X on it, snap a picture, and then move on to the next one.
Just a rhythm, a boring rhythm.
Totally.
And we really have to get into their mindset here. These guys, they aren't rookies. They're not jumpy kids fresh out of the academy.
No, these are veterans, family men. DeFalco is specifically described as being the steady type. The kind of guy who thinks about his wife when things get hairy to calm himself down. They are not looking for trouble. In fact, they're bored out of their minds.
And that boredom is actually a key factor in what happens next. There's a psychological concept in tactical training called condition white. Have you heard of Cooper's color code?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Condition white is when you are completely relaxed,
Yeah,
totally unaware of your surroundings because you just assume you're safe.
right. You're joking around, you're mentally checked out.
You're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner.
Exactly. And they were deep in condition white. The source material says Houlihan was complaining about the rats. He was actually hoping to shoot one, just to break up the monotony.
That tells you everything you need to know about the threat level in their minds.
Yeah.
It's zero. They have their service revolvers, of course, but at that moment, they're just heavy accessories on their hips.
They're in condition white in a place that probably should have demanded condition orange, at least.
At least. And this is where we have to reconstruct the final 3 minutes of their lives. Because the timeline is it's terrifyingly short. It all starts with a shift in the atmosphere.
It starts with a sound, right? Not a mechanical sound, like a car engine or a distant siren. It's biological. The report calls it a staccato growl.
Staccato. That word is so specific. It means short, detached sounds. It's not a long, drawn-out howl like you'd hear in a werewolf movie.
No.
It's rhythmic. It's almost communicative.
Yeah.
And then, in that same moment, the rats, which had been skittering around everywhere,
Yeah.
they just disappear.
And that should have been the first warning sign, a huge red flag.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a fundamental rule of nature. When the scavengers run, a predator is near. That's just how it works. If the rats are gone, it means something much bigger has arrived.
So the officers, they shift. They move from condition white to condition yellow. They're alert now.
Oh,
But they're not terrified. Not yet.
no, not yet. They hear movement, a rustling sound that seems to be circling them.
And this is the tactical part, that really stands out to me from the file. They actually did everything right, by the book. They went back to back,
Shoulders touching.
shoulders touched. That specific detail is in the report.
And that's standard procedure. It minimizes your blind spots. It creates a 360-degree field of vision. If you're up against a human threat, say a gang, a couple of muggers, this is a power move. It tells the aggressor, we see you and we are a single unit.
But the thing is, they weren't fighting humans.
No. And this is where this deep dive gets really dark. I want you to imagine you're Officer DeFalco for a second. You're staring into this maze of rusted cars. It's gray, it's raining, everything is muted. And then something steps out from between two stacked sedans.
And his immediate reaction, isn't to scream. It isn't to fire his weapon.
No, it's curiosity.
Yeah.
It's pure cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
His brain is seeing something that should not exist in Brooklyn, New York.
It's a processing error.
A total processing error. He sees a shape, a size, a set of eyes that belongs in a nightmare maybe, or a prehistoric jungle, not a car pound on the edge of the city. He's trying to process the data. He's thinking, is that a dog? No, it's way too big. Is it a wolf? No, wolves don't look like that. Is it a man in a suit?
And that hesitation, that split second where his brain is just trying to categorize what he's seeing.
That's the fatal error. It's a perfect example of a hack of the Odo loop.
Okay, let's break that down for the listener. The Odo loop, OODA.
All right. It stands for observe, orient, decide, and act. It's a strategic cycle developed by a military strategist named John Boyd. The idea is, in any conflict, you have to go through those 4 steps faster than your opponent.
So DeFalco observes the creature. He tries to orient himself to understand what it is.
But he gets stuck. He gets stuck in the orient phase because the data just doesn't make any sense. His brain has no file for this.
So he can't decide or act because he doesn't know what he's looking at.
Exactly. He eventually starts to reach for his gun. He's finally moving, finally reacting. But the creature has already cycled through its own loop. It observed him, it oriented, it decided, and it acted, all while DeFalco was still blinking, trying to understand.
We really need to talk about the physics of this attack, because just saying it was fast doesn't even begin to cover it.
No. We are talking about a speed that actually exceeds the reaction time of the human nervous system. A normal human reaction to a visual stimulus. Seeing a threat and starting to move your hand takes about 1/4 of a second, 0.25 seconds.
Okay.
In that 1/4 of a second, this thing closed the distance.
Let's put a clock on it. Based on the forensics, 10 seconds.
10 seconds. For both men to have their throats torn out, that's it. One moment they are standing shoulder to shoulder, a defensive posture. 10 seconds later, their major arteries are severed.
20 seconds.
The last of their arterial blood is pumping out into the mud and the rain. They're losing consciousness very, very rapidly.
30 seconds.
They were being consumed. And I don't mean just eaten like a lion eats a gazelle, tearing randomly at the flesh. I mean dismantled, systematically.
We're going to pause on the gore for just a second because the how is the core of the mystery. But just sit with that for a moment. 2 armed, trained, professional police officers dead in 10 seconds.
With their guns still in their holsters.
It's an impossibility, and that is the scene that Detectives Wolfen and Neff walk into the next day.
It's a complete paradox.
So let's move to section 1, the detectives and the scene. Because now we have to shift gears and look at this through the lens of the homicide investigation.
Right, so 14 hours have passed. The officers are officially listed as AWOL, which, again, that tells you so much about the culture of the department in the 70s.
The first assumption isn't officer down.
No, absolutely not. The assumption is they're drunk, they're at a bar, or they're cheating on their wives. Cynicism is the default setting of the NYPD in this era. They don't panic, they just roll their eyes.
But eventually they do find them. A search party of 4 cops goes in and finds the remains. And the reaction to the bodies it's visceral.
One of the rookies actually screams. The older, more seasoned cops just curse. The radio chatter immediately goes to, we've got a psycho, or it's a sex assault.
Why do they jump to that conclusion?
Because of the mutilation. The human brain tries to categorize horror just like DeFalco did. When we see bodies that have been opened up, organs removed, our cultural programming makes us think of Jack the Ripper. We think of sadism, of human monsters. We don't think food.
Because we don't eat people.
And because we don't have predators that do that kind of thing here. I mean, if this happened on the Serengeti, you'd think lion. If it happened in the Amazon, you'd think jaguar. But in Brooklyn, New York, your only frame of reference is maniac.
And that's when Detective George Wolfen enters the story. I love this character because he is such a beautifully disastrous human being.
He really is.
Yeah.
Wolfen is the old guard personified. He's described as looking like a busted refrigerator. He's huge. He's sloppy.
There's this one detail about him eating a hamburger that's so telling.
Yes. He eats the meat patty out of his hamburger separately from the bun. It's such a weird, specific character detail.
It is.
It shows his complete disconnection from social norms. He doesn't care about presentation. He only cares about the meat, the substance. And that's exactly who he is as a detective. He hates the politics. He hates the brass. He's honest to a fault, which is why he's still a detective 3rd grade after all these years on the force.
And then you have his partner, Becky Neff.
The new blood. She's 34. She's sharp. She's organized. She's ambitious. We have to put her in context. Being a female homicide detective in the 1970s, that was a war zone.
She's fighting the criminals on the street, and she's fighting the sexism in her own precinct.
Constantly. Wilson himself has this sort of Victorian view of women. He thinks they shouldn't be exposed to the horror of the job. He's always trying to shield her from the worst of it.
But she's the one who keeps the investigation actually running.
She is. She's the one who gets the siren fixed when the department garage ignores them because of budget cuts. She does all the paperwork that Wilson can't stand. She is the logistical glue holding their partnership together.
Their dynamic is described as pure hate laced with grudging respect.
It's a marriage of necessity. They bicker constantly, but they finish each other's sentences. They function as one organism. Wilson is the gut instinct, the raw intuition. Neff is the logical framework, the procedure. You absolutely need both to solve a case like this.
So they arrive at the pound. It's nighttime now. The scene is blasted with these huge Klieg lights.
And the sensory details here are just crucial to understanding the scene. It's not just visual. It's the smell. You have the heavy metallic scent of massive blood loss, mixed with the general rot of the dump, and the sharp ozone smell from the lights. It's an overwhelming assault on the senses.
And Neff, for all her toughness, she almost loses it right there.
She has to actively fight the urge to run. It's a primal reaction to a predation site. Her ancient lizard brain is just screaming, danger, get out! But she forces herself to look. And she's the one who spots the central anomaly almost immediately.
Their guns aren't even drawn.
That's the first crack in reality. If it was a maniac with a knife, they would have had time to draw and shoot him. If it was a gang ambush, there would have been a firefight. This doesn't fit.
And this is where the dog theory starts to get floated around the scene. But it hits a wall almost immediately.
Right. Someone points out the gnaw marks on the bones, so logically you think wild dogs. But the precinct captain is standing right there, and he practically laughs at the idea.
He knows the local fauna, so to speak.
He does. He says the local dogs are scrawny little mutts. They're scavengers, not predators. They run if you stomp your foot at them. The idea that a pack of stray beagles took down 2 armed cops To him, it's just insulting to the badge. It's impossible.
And then Dr. Evans arrives, the medical examiner.
The living legend. He's seen everything the city can throw at a human body. And even he is just baffled. He looks at the throat wound, the massive trauma literally ripped out, and he asks the exact same question as Neff. Why didn't they defend themselves?
While he's there, the forensics team is vacuuming the whole area. And I want to highlight this because this is where the technical side of the investigation gets really weird. We have to talk about Locard's exchange principle.
Right. Edmund Locard, the father of modern forensics. His core principle was every contact leaves a trace.
Right.
If you enter a room, you leave something behind as skin cells, a hair, fibers from your clothes. And you take something with you, dust from the carpet, pollen from a plant. It is a scientific law that you cannot interact with the scene without an exchange of matter.
So if a human killer or killers did this?
There should be something. Footprints, obviously. Shoe prints, cigarette butts, fibers from their clothing, DNA from spit or sweat, something.
But the scene was clean.
In terms of human evidence, yes. He was completely sterile. They found nothing human at all except for the victims themselves. But he was covered in animal evidence. Dog hairs, rat hairs, even feathers.
So on one hand, logic dictates it was animals. But on the other hand, logic also says animals can't do this.
That is the central paradox of the whole case. You have a crime scene that screams animal and a timeline that screams impossible. And to solve that, Wilson and Neff have to leave the mud and the rain and go to the morgue.
Which brings us to section 2, the autopsy. And the transition here, it's so stark. You go from this chaotic, muddy, rainy dump
to the medical examiner's office.
Yeah.
A factory of forensic pathology. It's right across the street from Bellevue Hospital. It's sterile. It's gleaming. It smells like disinfectant and formaldehyde. Cold and clinical.
And Wilson, the tough guy detective, he hates it.
Oh, he hates it. He gets squeamish. He's claustrophobic. It's this wonderful touch of humanity for this gruff character. He can stand and look at the messiest crime scene out on the street. The surgical precision of an autopsy, the cold steel, it makes him green.
But he stays.
He has to. He forces himself to watch because he needs to know what really happened.
And Dr. Evans delivers his findings. This is where we really get into the physics of the kill. Cause of death is clear. Massive insult to the throat. Teeth and claws. But then he finds the tooth.
The evidence of the tooth. This is, in my opinion, the single most important piece of physical evidence in the entire case file. The smoking gun.
It's a small detail, but it's everything.
Yeah. Evans finds a sharp, white tooth embedded deep into Falco's wrist.
In his wrist. Okay, let's unpack that. Why is that specific location so incredibly important?
Because of the physics of the wound itself. The tooth wasn't just, resting there on the skin. It was wrenched loose from its socket. That implies a huge amount of force and tension. It means DeFalco was alive, and his muscles were tense when he was bitten.
He was in the middle of drawing his gun.
Exactly. He was mid-motion. His arm was coming up. The muscles in his forearm and wrist were flexed. We know this because of the way the tissue had gripped the tooth. It wasn't a bite on a limp, dead arm. It was a bite on a resisting, living one.
So this proves the timeline we were talking about earlier.
It proves it conclusively. It proves he saw the threat. It proves he tried to react. And it proves that the animal, or whatever it was, intercepted his hand while it was in the air.
Wow.
I mean, think about the precision required to do that. To bite a moving wrist, not the bicep, not the shoulder, the wrist, the joint. It was a targeted strike to stop the gun from being drawn.
So Evans concludes that if these were dogs, they had to be huge. 70 or 80 pounds at least, and faster than any dog he has ever seen or heard of.
And then there's the state of the bodies. We mentioned they were consumed. But the report is very specific that it wasn't random, was it?
No, this is maybe the most disturbing part of the whole autopsy. They were gutted.
The entrails were removed, and specific organs were then swallowed whole. The liver, the heart, the pancreas, all the soft, nutrient-rich tissues. But the muscle tissue, the biceps, the thighs, was largely left behind.
Why does that matter? Why is that such a critical clue?
Because of energy conservation. Think about it. Standard carnivores like wolves or dogs, they generally eat the muscle first. They tear at the meat because it's the most accessible source of protein. This was surgical. It was a feeding, yes, but it was incredibly selective.
It sounds like they knew exactly what they wanted, like they were picking off a menu.
It suggests a very high-efficiency predator, an animal that doesn't want to waste time or energy digesting bone or tough gristle. It wants the vitamins, the iron, the high-calorie organs first. It speaks to an intelligence in the feeding pattern that you just do not see in a frenzied dog attack.
And just to close the loop on the forensics, the toxicology was clean. No drugs in the officer's systems, just that residual carbon monoxide, which we are definitely going to get to later.
Right. So now where are we? We have a clean crime scene. We have a predator that strikes with supernatural speed and precision. And we have a surgical, intelligent feeding pattern. Neff and Wilson realize they are completely out of their depth when it comes to animal behavior. They need a specialist.
They need Tom Rilker. And that brings us to Section 3, the expert witness.
Tom Rilker is a legend in the department. He's the guy the cops call when they have any kind of problem involving a dog. He trains the sniffer dogs, the attack dogs, for the canine unit. He works for the FBI with customs. Neff's husband, Dick, apparently worships the guy.
So they go to his office. They lay out the photos of the bodies. And this is a man who has seen everything involving dogs, dog fighting, maulings, everything. What is his reaction?
Fear. Pure and simple.
No.
He is visibly shaken by the photographs. The file says he's sweating. His hands are trembling. He looks at the photos of the wounds and the feeding pattern, and he just says, dogs don't do this.
He's absolutely adamant about it.
Completely. He explains that to train a dog to gut a human being like that, to make it ignore the limbs and go straight for the internal organs, you would need, and this is a quote, human models. You would have to train them on actual people.
Which implies an incredibly sadistic and brilliant trainer.
A trainer of a caliber that Rilker believes doesn't even exist. It implies a level of conditioned, specific behavior that is just beyond what a dog's brain can learn. Rilker knows dogs. He knows their limits, their instincts. And this is way beyond those limits.
But then Wilson and Neff produce the plaster casts. The casts of the paw prints they found in the mud around the bodies.
The smoking paw, so to speak. Rilker takes them. He puts them under his desk lamp. And this is the moment where the story really shifts from a strange crime drama to something biological, something evolutionary.
He sees something weird in the prints, doesn't he?
He sees circules. That's the word he uses. Ridges and whorls.
Like fingerprints.
Exactly like human fingerprints. We call them dermatoglyphics. I mean, you can do it right now. Just look at your own fingertips. See those swirls? Do you know why we have them?
I always thought it was for grip.
It is for grip, but it's also for sensitivity. Those tiny ridges actually amplify vibrations when we touch something. They let us feel fine texture. They let us hold tools with precision. Animals, dogs, wolves, cats. They have pads. Rough, leathery pads designed for running on hard terrain. They don't have fingerprints because they don't need that kind of fine motor control.
So Rilker is looking at a paw print that has the characteristics of a human hand.
And he says it plainly. No known animal has prints like this. Not dogs, not wolves, not bears, not even primates. He says it is a biological impossibility in the known natural world. If a wolf-like creature has fingerprints, it implies it uses its paws for something more than just running. It implies manipulation. It implies a higher level of intelligence.
And Neff, bless her, she just puts the question out there. She asks the one question that everyone is thinking but is too afraid to actually say out loud. Werewolves.
It's such a great moment in the file. She's testing him. She wants to see if he's a serious person or, a crank. And Rilker, he doesn't laugh. He doesn't dismiss it out of hand.
And that's the scary part, right? The expert doesn't laugh.
No. He admits that he doesn't believe in werewolves, in the supernatural, magical sense. But he also admits that the physical evidence in front of him is biological nonsense. He's a rational man being forced to look at an irrational object.
So what is his final conclusion? If it's not a dog, and he doesn't believe in magic, what's left?
His conclusion is actually terrifyingly rational. He says this have to be an unknown species. A man-killing animal, genetically distinct from dogs or wolves, that is running free in Brooklyn.
Just pause on that for a second. An unknown species. In Brooklyn, in the 1970s, we're not talking about the deep Amazon rainforest. We're not in the Marianas Trench. We're in a borough of millions of people.
And Wilson, of course, he mocks it. He's the cynic. He says, we don't need help from a museum. He rejects the unknown because it complicates the job. It's not something he can solve with an arrest.
But Neff
gets it. She realizes the terrifying implication. If there is a new species, a new apex predator that hunts in packs and specifically targets humans, then the city is not safe. The police cannot protect the public from something they don't even understand.
And this brings us right to Section 4, the bureaucracy of denial. Because you would think with this kind of information, dead cops, unknown super predators, the city would go on high alert. You'd think they'd call in the National Guard, scientists, zoologists from the Bronx Zoo.
You would think that. But that assumes that the primary goal of the bureaucracy is public safety. In this case, The goal is self-preservation, political self-preservation.
The context here is just key. It's late autumn. There's a new mayor coming into office in January.
Right. The whole political landscape is fragile. The police commissioner and the chief of detectives, a man named Underwood, they're scrambling. They want to keep their jobs under the new administration.
And to do that, they need to look competent.
They need to project an image of control. They care about morale and public image. The actual truth is a distant second concern.
And admitting that an unknown monster ate 2 of your cops doesn't look very good on a resume.
It makes them look helpless. It makes the entire police force look weak. Underwood actually says completely unacceptable. He says that admitting cops were killed by wild dogs makes the force look like a bunch of jerk-offs. It is purely about ego and optics.
So they have this big meeting at headquarters, at one police plaza, in Underwood's office, which is described as having expensive bad taste. Lots of leather and, ironically, hunting scenes on the walls.
And there's an assistant DA there as well who's basically sniffing around to see if the dead cops were dirty.
Of course.
They're looking for any reason to dismiss these deaths as something other than a systemic failure of the department. They want to blame the victims.
And Wilson, to his credit, lays it out. He tells them it was dogs or something like them. He tries to tell the truth as best he understands it.
And he gets shut down immediately. Underwood doesn't want the truth. He needs a lie, a clean, simple, believable lie. And he finds one in the toxicology report.
The carbon monoxide.
That's right. The report showed trace levels of CO in the officer's blood, residual amounts, the kind of thing you'd get from just standing in traffic or breathing the polluted city air. But Underwood latches onto this detail like a lifeline. It's the perfect scapegoat.
Why is it perfect?
Because it's invisible. It's blameless. It's an accident. He fabricates the entire story right there in the room. He says the officers were incapacitated by carbon monoxide poisoning, maybe a leak from their patrol car's exhaust. They passed out. Then, while they were unconscious, the local wild dogs came and attacked them.
It explains everything without admitting anything.
Exactly. It explains why they didn't draw their guns. They were asleep. It explains why they didn't scream or fight back.
Yeah.
It turns a supernatural horror story into a tragic but ultimately boring industrial accident.
And it gives them an action plan, the visible part.
The security theater aspect of it, yeah. Underwood orders a huge sweep by the tactical patrol force. They're going to go into the dump with rifles and shoot every single wild dog they see. They'll call the newspapers, get some photos. Case closed.
But it's not case closed, is it? Because the wild dogs that they're going to kill didn't do it.
Not at all. By killing all the stray mutts, they are doing absolutely nothing to stop the real predators. In fact, you could argue they're helping them.
How so?
They're removing the competition. They're clearing the territory. And to make sure the lie holds, Wilson and Neff are officially kicked off the case. They're reassigned to prevent them from contradicting the official story to the press.
And that's a real tragedy of the bureaucracy here. By lying to protect their own careers and the department's image, they are leaving a lethal, intelligent, unknown species to hunt freely in their city. The public is being given a completely false sense of safety.
It's the absolute definition of the bureaucracy of denial. It is far easier to kill a few stray dogs and issue a press release than to admit that the city has lost control of its own territory.
Which leads us perfectly into the backdrop of all of this. Section 5, the sociological backdrop, the city itself.
You really have to view New York City in this story as a character in its own right, a dying character. It's a city deep in decay. And the Fountain Avenue dump is the perfect symbol of that rot.
We see it in all the little details of the police work. Wilson's siren was broken for a month. Neff had to get a neighborhood electronics freak to fix it because the department garage just wouldn't.
The staffing is a joke. They have only 12 men assigned to maintain the entire police fleet for the city.
12 men.
It's a completely crumbling infrastructure. The fiscal crisis of the 70s isn't just a headline in the paper. It's the day-to-day reality on the ground for these cops.
And the police mindset, it reflects that decay. Wilson is so cynical about corruption because he sees it everywhere. He has that great line, every parasite is going to try to horn in on the credit.
And Neff is conflicted too. She's constantly worried about her husband, Dick. There are all these rumors swirling about his narcotics unit, rumors about brutality, about corruption.
It just creates this profound sense of isolation, The police feel totally separated from the civilians they're supposed to protect. They see the public as this miserable, bloody mass of victims and criminals. And in return, the public sees the cops as incompetent or corrupt.
It's a completely fractured society. There's no trust.
And there's this really haunting vignette at the very end of the source material that drives this home. It involves a civilian, a man named Mike O'Donnell.
Yes. This is so important because it puts a face on the potential victims. It takes the story out of the precinct and puts it on the street. Mike is just walking home through these ruined streets of the South Bronx, and he notes the deadly stillness.
That's silence.
Yeah, that sounds. He remembers how it used to be a noisy, clamorous city, full of life. But now, in these abandoned neighborhoods, it's silent. And that silence isn't empty. It's expectant. It's watchful.
We tend to think of abandoned buildings as just empty, as ruins, static.
But nature abhors a vacuum. If people leave a place, something else will always move in. First, the rats move in. Then the dogs that hunt the rats. And then maybe something that eats the dogs.
So let's connect all the dots here. We have a city that is literally full of abandoned buildings, these proposed parks that are actually wastelands, and a bureaucracy that is actively choosing to look the other way, to ignore the truth. It is the perfect ecosystem for a new predator to thrive.
It absolutely is. I mean, if you were an intelligent predator, where would you hide? You wouldn't go to the Hamptons. You wouldn't go to a national forest where there are hunters. You'd go where the people are, because people are food. But you'd live where no one looks. The ruins, the dumps, the subway tunnels, the places we ignore.
Okay, so let's summarize this entire deep dive. What have we got? We have 2 dead police officers, no shots fired, guns in their holsters.
We have an expert witness, Tom Rilker, who confirms the existence of paw prints with human-like fingerprints, physical evidence of an unknown species.
We have a medical examiner who confirms the speed of the attack was, for all intents and purposes, supernatural. It defied the laws of human reaction time.
And we have a chief of detectives who sweeps it all under the rug with a convenient lie about carbon monoxide poisoning.
The pieces are all there. The Wolfen, as the title of the source material implies, they're not just animals. They are intelligent. They are organized. They specifically intercepted a gun hand.
And that implies they understand our technology. They understand what a gun is and what it does.
Yeah. That's the truly terrifying aha moment of this whole thing. They are not just eating us, they are studying us.
And they are thriving in the blind spots of our crumbling civilization.
So here's the question we have to leave you with. The final provocative thought for the day. Rilker said this is an unknown species. But evolution, it takes time. It takes millions of years. You don't just evolve unique fingerprints and strategic intelligence overnight.
Exactly. If they are here now, hunting in this incredibly sophisticated way, they have likely been here for a very, very long time.
So where have they been?
Well, maybe they've always been here, hiding in the shadows, living in our folklore. The myths of the werewolf, the man-eating beast, those stories didn't come from nowhere. But now in the crumbling concrete jungle of the 1970s, they have found a new hunting ground, a better, more target-rich hunting ground.
The city is full of abandoned places. We walk past them every single day. We look at a boarded-up building or a fenced-off lot, and we don't think twice about it. But if a predator had evolved specifically to hunt in that exact environment,
would we even know it was there until it was too late?
Officers DeFalco and Houlihan didn't.
And neither will the next victims. Because the city, as an institution, has officially decided it's better to look away.
So next time you hear a strange news report, something about a tragic accident in a desolate place or a wild dog attack that doesn't quite add up, just ask yourself, is that the real truth? Or is it just the version that lets us all sleep at night?
Question the official version, always.
We'll leave you with that thought. This has been The Deep Dive. Thanks for listening.